Good.
Dhirenji.
Hari Om.
How are you? I hope all is well.
Yes, everything is going well.
Good.
Let's get
Hari Om,
started.
Dhirenji.
Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Pada Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Kruto Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishwaro Gururatmeti Murtibheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Samasta Janakalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Mukam Karoti Vachalam Angum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam Paramananda Madhavam. The first sloka of Drshya Vivek. Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drak Tadrishyam Druktumanasam Drishyadhi Vrittaya Sakshi Drige Vanat Drishyate. The power of Maya is divided into two. One is the veiling power, other is the projecting power. And this power works just as equally outside as inside. What do we mean by works outside is it covers the Satchidananda Swarupa, the nature of reality, the existence, consciousness, bliss, and then allows for the projecting power to display upon it the names and the forms. So all the different things that we see. And similarly, inside, meaning in the individual, for an individual, the same power, it veils the Atman, the self, and then it projects on top of it, again, the name and form. But name here is, I am this being. It projects upon us this idea or identity of the mind, intellect. Then it projects upon us the form, the body. So in this way, internally also, this veiling and projecting power works, and externally also it works. And this is the cause for us to be in transmigration, for us to go through samsara after birth after birth. So how do we get out? What can we do to get out? And the answer is that we separate the two. We know that one is being projected upon the other. If there is a rope and there is a snake, one is being projected on the other, then all you do is you separate. And once you separate, all the anxieties and everything is gone. In Vivek Chudamani, it's very interesting how Adi Shankaracharya ji presents. So he says that there is this snake, and snake, on it, one has projected a rope. Normally, we find the example of rope, and on that you project snake. But he says that there is a snake, on that you have projected a rope, and then you use that rope for your daily transactions or other things that you do. So, how much pain, suffering we are causing ourselves because we have not understood that we are being bitten by this vicious snake of samsara. It's a snake, but we're thinking, no, it's so magical. It gives us so much joy, so much, of comfort. And we think that that's what we are to follow. So we have to be aware of it. And how? So we do Viveka. Distinguish between what is the reality and what is non-real. So Swami Advayananji has done this very nice analysis. So I thought, maybe we can also go through that analysis. What if we try to understand what is the substratum of this entire creation, the whole universe? How do we know what is the factor that created this entire universe from Vedantic standpoint only, not from the scientific standpoint? And in order for something to be the cause for something, we have to, we will use this cause and effect relationship to understand the cause for this entire creation. So when we say that there is a cause, that must mean that the cause has to pervade in the effect. Then only we can say that the cause is the cause for whatever that effect is. So for example, if we take gold earrings or gold necklace or gold bangles, okay? So in there, we can easily say that gold is the cause, correct? Gold is the cause for all the different types of ornaments that are there. Why do we say that the gold is a cause? Is because gold pervades through all the ornaments. So because gold is there in all the ornaments, therefore gold is the cause of those gold ornaments. Okay. Now that same logic, if we take and we apply it to some tools like a screwdriver or pliers or cutters or gardening tools. Now they are made of iron. right? So we cannot say that the cause for them is gold, because gold does not pervade those iron. Similarly, iron doesn't pervade the gold ornaments. So they're two separate. But there's something common that we can find that could be the cause. So we can say that the commonality between them would be that they're metal. One is gold metal, other is iron metal. But both are metal. So therefore, we can say the common cause is metal, right? So in this way, we say the cause is this. Okay, now if we take something that is wooden, for example, then, like a furniture that we may be sitting on or the laptop is placed on. Now that we cannot say is metal. It has to be wood. Now wood and metal is separate. So again, we have to find a commonality between them, right? So what else can we say? So we can say that they're common because they're both matter in a way. So the common cause between them is that they're matter, right? So we can reduce the cause for all the matter to be some matter particle that is the reason for them to exist. Okay. Then what about those things that are not matter? What about those things that are, that do not have like space? Although spaces matter, but it's different. What about those things that do not have matter? What about when we talk about, science talks about dark matter? They're basically calling it dark matter because there's nothing there. It's just blank. So what about those things? But one thing we can say in all of them, that they exist. A gold ornament is, an iron ornament is, wood furniture is, matter is, and no matter is also there. So it also is. It's not a void. Right? So there's nothing that we can say does not exist. It exists. And therefore, the common thing that we can deduce to, and this is how Vedanta points out that the common factor behind everything in this creation is this existence. And that existence is the reality. Okay, so this is how even when Gurudev talks about the cause-effect relationship. So this is what Gurudev is saying, that the cause cannot be, or the effect cannot be different from the cause. So when we look at the world, there is this pointing of the existence being present. And in everything that we see, existence is there. There is one example also, a story between Akbar and Birbal. Okay. Very famous kids love, adults love kind of story. So once a person comes to King Akbar and says, King Akbar, you are considered to be a very generous person. But I know you also have limitation. So King Akbar says, what limitations you're talking about? Ask whatever you want, I will give you. As long as you don't ask me for my throne, I will give you everything you want. Anything you name, I will give it to you. He says, so this man says, are you sure? Are you sure you can give me anything that I ask you of? And I will not ask you for your throne. So this man says, Akbar says, sure, whatever you ask, I will give you. So this man says, give me nothing. Can you give me nothing? So Akbar is confused. What do you mean give you nothing? How can someone give nothing? Someone can only give something. How can they give nothing? So then this man started rejoicing and he said, "See, I told you, you are not a greatest king. You cannot give nothing." And then Birbal was there in the kingdom. So then Birbal said, "Oh, gentlemen, you want nothing? I will give you nothing." So then he tells them that, "You see this carpet? How do you like this carpet?" So this man said, "It's a good carpet, but I don't want the carpet. I want nothing." So Birbal says, "Fine, fine. I will give you nothing only. But I just wanted to show you how this carpet is. It's look nice, right?" Then he says, "Let me pull this carpet up here." And he pulls up the carpet and then he says, "What do you see underneath the carpet?" And this man says, "Nothing." "Well, take it. Nothing is for you." So in this way, nothing is also seen and nothing is also experienced. So what is meant here is that everything in this creation has existence as their common element. The most common element in everything, the most common denominator in everything will be this existence. It has to be there. If it is not there, it cannot exist. So one is that it exists. Second is that which exists is not dull. It's not. It doesn't. It's not that it doesn't shine. It shines. It presents itself. So everything that we see in this creation has a way of presenting itself in different way, different nature, but it presents somehow. So it is of the nature of consciousness. Okay? So everything in this creation, first is it exists. As it exists, it also shines. And as it shines, it is also dear to someone or somebody. It is a factor of joy for someone or somebody. Therefore, when we limit, or not limit, when we go further in the analysis, we find that the creation, the reality, boils down to the Satchit Ananda. And on this Satchit Ananda is the superimposition done by the power that has veiled the Satchidananda and the projecting power then which shows us that there is a name and a form. So thus far, the text has gone in to explain to us that what has the veiling power done and how it has hid this reality Satchidananda away from us. Now in next two shloka, it will tell us what is the nature of the Satchidananda and what is the nature of the Jagat and how both of them have to be separated. How we have to keep them different. And that is the Drik and Drshya Viveka. Drshya is that which is changing. So therefore, the names and forms will change. But the changeless, which is the Drik, that is same in all. So whether it is a gold ornament, whether it is a iron, or whether it is a wood, the name and form changed. Whether it is a human being, whether it is an animal, whether it is a devata, they changed, but the existence in them, the consciousness in them, and the bliss in them, that doesn't change. And they're not three, they're just one. It's just appearing different. because we are seeing them in a different way, that's all. But they themselves are one, three in one. Okay. So let's go to our next shloka for today. Asti bhati priyam rupam नाम चेत्यं शपञ्चकम् आद्यत्रयं ब्रह्मरूपम् जगद्रूपं ततोद्वयम् अस्ति भाति प्रियं रूपं नाम चेत्यं शपञ्चकम् आद्यत्रयं ब्रह्मरूपं जगद्रूपं ततोद्वयम्. So if we break down the entire creation, we will find there are 5 factors in this creation. 5 aspects that we can reduce it to. Asti, bhati, and priyam. Rupam and nama are the 5. Chet, amsha panchakam. These are the 5 amshas, the 5 aspects of this creation. So anything that we take, the examples that we took thus far, the example of a gold, example of iron, example of a wood, example of a humans, example of an animal. First is they all exist. We cannot deny that they do not exist. And by existence, we mean that they're present. That's what is meant as existence. They are present. They appear. They show themselves. Even nothing shows itself. There's a presence for it. And that is what is meant as existence. Okay, so asti, it is. Bhati, it shines. They do not present themselves without shining. What do we say doesn't presents itself but doesn't shine? Is there something like that that is existing but it doesn't present itself? No. That which exists, it presents itself. It may not be visible through my eyes, but that is not the measurement. That is not the means for me to tell me that it exists because I see it. Certain radio waves, I can't see. But because they travel, some are able to hear. Some animals, they can hear radio waves. So just because of that, just because I can't perceive it, doesn't mean that they do not exist. It may be just subtle, but the moment it presents, it exists. And scripture says that there is this idea of the horn on a rabbit. That is what they say. So have we seen a horn on a rabbit? No, rabbit doesn't have a horn that it grows. Unless it's genetically modified, then we don't know. But in their nature, a hare or a rabbit doesn't grow a horn. So because it doesn't exist. So if that which doesn't exist has no presence also. So bhati therefore means that which exists also shines. So in external world also, and within us also as an individual, we exist, we shine. And priyam, dear. They have a factor of um, pleasure. Any object, it has the factor of pleasure. We may think that the the mud that is lying on the street may not be so good, and we would be disgusted by it. But have you gone and seen those sewages in India? And these pigs, they just like to just roll around and just be covered in that mud. They just enjoy this and feel that it's a pleasurable thing. So like that, that which may not be so dear to us may be dear to somebody. So what it tells is there's a factor of pleasure in that. And just because humans don't like it doesn't make it that it's not likable. What we have to see is, does it have the factor of endearment? And if it does, that means it has priyam. These termites, they enjoy, wood. Now, we don't enjoy wood. We don't like it. I mean, it helps us with the house, but that's about it. But they enjoy it, they eat it, they love it, and they reside in it. So again, this idea or this factor of dearing, endearment, that is what is meant as being priyam. I had heard one story that, I think it is Prahlada's story. I've not confirmed it, but Prahlada was told by Bhagwan that, okay, let's go to Vaikuntha. Your time has come, and are you ready now to come to Vaikuntha? So Prahlada says, yes, I'm ready. But I feel so sorry for all these beings here. Why can't I take them with me? So Bhagwan says, you can try, but they won't come with you. But he says, no, Bhagwan, I will convince them. You just give me one opportunity, I'll convince them, and they'll come with me. So Prahlada goes, and he first asks one boy, and this boy says, oh, that would be so nice to go and go to Vaikuntha at Bhagwan's place. But then he says, just recently I finished graduation, and my parents are looking for a wife for me. Maybe I will delay it right now and then go after some years. So he thought, Prahlad thought, maybe this person is closer to his age or peak of his life, so he may not want to come. Let me ask somebody who is closer to their age of death. Maybe they would want to come. And then he asks a lady who is, near the end. And she said, no, 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 no. How can I go? I have my family members to look after. I have all these things that I have to take care of. I am happy here chanting the name of Lord. I don't need to go to Vaikuntha. So she denied. Then Prahlada goes to a pig. He thought, maybe I'll just go and ask the animals. They will probably, because they are in suffering so much that they will listen and they will come. So he goes to the pig and he says, would you like to come to Vaikuntha? And the pig says, sure, that is so fun. I will come with you. But can you also promise me that when I go there, that they will have this mud pile there in Vaikuntha? Then I will come. You please guarantee that Bhagavan will have this there. So the point is that they all had different goals. But what was the idea that the pig had so much endearment for this mud that it didn't want to leave it. And like that, this entire creation, somebody has some like for some other thing. That's why we have garage sale, and why the garage sales are successful. So you can get rid of your junk, and others feel that it is a treasure for them. I got it at a discounted dollar rate. So therefore, one man's, you know, waste is another man's treasure. So asti, bhati, priyam, these are the three aspects. And this other two is rupam and nama. Rupam is a form. That which exists cannot exist without some kind of form. It has to have some kind of form. So therefore, it takes something, a measure. Now, a gold earring, that earring is just a form. It is formed in the shape of that earring. Same thing can be melted and made into a necklace. So gold did not change, just the form changed. Same gold. Like that, an iron can be melted and made into a knife, or it could be made into a scissor, or it could be made into a sword. Different things we can do with it. But the fact still remains is that iron is there, that commonality is there. So all that we changed was form. And because we changed the form, we have to give some name to it. Then only it becomes transactional. If you have a form but there's no name for it, then what is the use for it? How will we ever use it in transaction? So therefore, anything that has asti, bhati, priyam will have rupam and nama. And by rupa and nama, all other aspects are also considered. That they have, um, sense of touch, sense of sight, sense of tastes, all those things, they kind of come along with it. But the fact remains is that these two are also there. Then the author says that Adyatrayam, the first three, Adyatrayam, Brahmarupam, Jagadrupam, Tatodvayam. So the first three belong to Brahman, the reality. So those three are coming from the reality, and the other two, the Rupam and Nama, Jagadrupam, that is coming from the creation. So how is it coming from creation? It is the projection, the projecting power that is able to show the Rupa and Nama. Okay. So this is how we first have to understand that if we see the basic commonality in any object, we will see that this object will have a nama rupa, but it also has existence, consciousness, and bliss. But guess what happens? When we see anything in this creation, our first focus and attention goes to nama rupa. And when it goes to nama rupa, we are done. We don't even consider about the other three aspects that are in there. It just goes behind our head, and we literally take it for granted. We know it exists. I don't need to think about it that it exists, but it doesn't occur to me. Similarly with the body, I look in the mirror not to find the existence in it. I look in the mirror to make sure that my rupa looks good. My hair, beard and hair is looking nice. So that way I am set. Bindi is, chandan is put on perfectly. It's not too crooked this way or this way. So When I do that, it's Nama Rupa comes forth. And we forget about Asti Bhati Priyam. So this needs to be, once we identify that there are these three, now the next shloka will explain to us what do we need to do with all these five aspects. खवायवग्नि जलोवी जलोर्विषु देवतीर्यं नरादिषु अभिन्ना सच्चिदानन्दाः विद्येते रूपनामनि. खवायवग्नि जलोर्विषु देवतीर्यं नरादिषु अभिन्ना सच्चिदानन्दाः विद्येते रूपनामनि. Okay. So, kha means space. Vayu, Vayu is the air. Agni, fire. Jala is water. And Urvi, earth. Shu, in all of them. So, in space, air, fire, water, earth. Deva, Tiryak, Naradishu. Deva means the devatas, celestial beings. Tiryak means the animals. They are horizontal. Horizontal means, Tiryak means horizontal. And what that means is they are horizontal to the ground. Whenever we look at animals, their head, their heart, and their belly, they're all flat to the ground. Us humans are vertical. First comes head, then comes heart, then comes belly. Okay? So in that order, so Tiryang means all the animal kingdom. So animals, ants, worms, all of these, and Nara, Manushya, Adi, Shu, etc. So Adi means plant kingdom and all other beings. So in all the beings and in all the elements, what is common? Abhinnaha Satchidanandaha. The existence, consciousness, bliss, that does not change. All of them have this common factor. Vidyete Rupanamani. But what is different in all of them is the Rupa and Nama. The name and the form are different in all creatures and in all elements of this creation. So we must also separate these. In our experience of the world, whenever we now look at an object, what should come to mind is what is the Asti Bhati Priyam and what is the Nama Rupa. We should be able to separate the two now. We understand that when I look at the phone, this phone is not simply just Nama Rupa, but the phone is Satchidananda. On this Satchidananda, a Nama Rupa has been projected. Similarly, on this Satchidananda, Nama Rupa has been projected. Similarly, on that Sachidananda, Nama Rupa has been projected. So anything and everything that we perceive in this creation, we can easily separate the Nama Rupa from the Sachidananda. And the moment you separate Nama Rupa from Sachidananda, that should tell you that Nama Rupa is false. Because it is false, I do not need to side with it. Doesn't matter how much pleasure it gives. It cannot give me the pleasure higher than the bliss that I already am. It can give pleasure, but to whom? It gives the pleasure to the faulty mind. It gives the pleasure to the mind which is bound because it has taken a wrong notion about itself. So this separation is the idea of Drshya, Viveka. After this begins a very interesting topic, and that is, how do I use this knowledge to meditate upon Satchidananda? How do I realize this Satchidananda by knowing that in everything in this creation has Satchidananda and also has name and form? What can I do? So we have heard many times, correct, that Vedanta has to start with Shravana, then you do Manana, and then you do Nididhyasana. This is how the progression goes. Shravana happens when we sit at the feet of a guru and listen to the Shruti. Correct? We should not think sit at the feet of a guru is like literally you find a guru and you sit at the feet. No, sit at the feet means with the reverence when you open the book of Pujya Gurudev and you study the chapters, you study the Upanishads, and there with that openness, you listen to Gurudev speaking to you. Guru is going to tell you all the knowledge that is there. That is Shravana happening. Manana is, why is my Guru saying it this way? What is the meaning of this knowledge? Why am I Brahman? What makes me Brahman? When we question and we contemplate on this knowledge, that is what is called as Manan. Where the doubts that have come about within us, we remove those doubts. And when we remove the doubts, we become convinced that I am Satchidananda. I am Satchidananda. I have become convinced. Here in the text, the author, by presenting this idea, has taken the assumption that a person has understood that they are Satchidananda. So therefore, the next phase that is taken up is the phase of Nididhyasana. How can one meditate on this Satchidananda and attain self-realization? So from next shloka onwards till the end, this is the entire focus has going to be now. So how do we meditate and then realize the Brahman? Realize my true nature. Okay. So that topic we will take up with our next class. I think this is a good point where we can stop. And if there are any doubts, questions, or comments you'd like to share, please go ahead. Sumaji, yes, go ahead.
Yeah. I had a question, Dhirenji. You said every inert matter also has the consciousness? How do you define that? I thought consciousness exists only with living beings, right? I don't know. How do you explain that?
Good question. So, when we explain consciousness, we are saying knowledge that is independent on its own. When we speak of consciousness in living beings, we are talking about the mind that is able to shine because of the presence of consciousness being there. It is like the example that we had talked about of electricity. Electricity is everywhere. All we have to do is find the right medium to connect to it. And the moment we connect to it, we will have the feeling of electricity. Right? Similarly, consciousness is everywhere. Even in a dead person, consciousness is there. But the mind has left, the subtle body has left the body. Therefore, the consciousness is no longer expressing. Because mind is there to express it right now. In dead person, that mind is not there. Therefore, when we say in Vedanta, consciousness here, we are talking about the very factor which allows this to shine. And that is the consciousness. Do you?
So that means because, for example, because I'm seeing the phone, I know it is existing and I'm aware of its existence. So that's why I say that it has the consciousness. Does it mean that?
So when you are able to see the phone, you are only aware of the existence. You can see that it exists, correct? But the consciousness aspect is seen by its ability to shine, its ability to present itself. So there the consciousness is not that it is able to move on its own, it is able to think on its own, it is able to program itself. That's not meant here as consciousness, because that requires a capacity of mind to take that feelings, and that inert objects do not have. Therefore, inert objects don't have mind. Therefore, it cannot do that.
So it just presents itself and then we perceive that because of our consciousness.
We perceive it because of our consciousness.
Our consciousness. Yes. But it is presenting itself because it also has consciousness, but it does not have the mind associated with it.
Okay, you can think of it this way. No, you're understanding it correctly only. You're understanding it correctly only. Only one thought I wanted to add to this is, see, if something exists, okay, say something exists, but it is not able to shine, it is not able to present itself, then how can you say it exists? So the fact that it exists and it is able to show itself, it proves that it is also shining. It is also consciousness.
Right. Okay.
It is different from it is conscious. We're not saying it is conscious.
Yeah.
That is how science defines consciousness within human beings.
Right.
That when they say consciousness, they're talking about this mind intellect having the ability to know, to think, to develop ideas on its own.
Yeah.
But mind and intellect has that ability, but it is also borrowed from the light of the consciousness.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So basically, therefore, what we're saying is when you see a phone, you experience the presence, and the moment you experience the presence, you know that it is existing and it is also shining. And
Yeah.
as it is shining also, it has also the factor of bliss. It is dear.
Yes. Yes. So if it does not shine, if it exists but it does not shine, then I'm not going to be conscious of that particular object there. Or in other words, it has no consciousness,
Correct.
right? Because it's not able to present itself.
Correct. But it will never happen. It will never happen because why? Consciousness is infinite. So how can there be something that is present but is never conscious?
Yeah.
That would put a limitation in
On this, it will become finite, and when it's finite, you cannot define it as Brahman.
Yes.
It's something which cannot be defined. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Dhirenji,
Thank you.
in the last class, you said the difference between sentient, which is human being, and insentient is, in the sentient, the false I is risen. So by that analogy, does it mean that in the insentient, like what Sumaji is saying, rock and the false I is not, there is no false I?
Yes, absolutely. There is that false I missing. In a rock or in a phone, that false I is not there. And the false I is not there is because the reflection, the medium for reflection is not there.
Nice.
Dhirenji.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the question is then if, isness, Sat and Chit, what you're saying from the previous question is that, if Sat is there, then Chit is automatically in there. But then, we always, why then define it as two different things? What is the difference between existing and an ability to shine? Because, you're saying that if it exists, but then I can't perceive it, how do I know it exists? I mean, why would it exist then? So, you know what I'm saying? If Sat automatically implies Chit, I mean, there is one logic which says Sat, Chit and Anand imply each other, right? That's one logic. But when you're trying to understand separately, then you should just say Chit, because Sat itself, how can Sat itself exist?
So this is the limitation of the word that we have. There is no word that can describe Brahman. Even to say Brahman is actually not correct. Because when you say something is big, what definition can you give of big? Because big again gets us to thinking that is so vast, such huge. And again, it puts limitation. So therefore, then you have to kind of put another word that would break down that limitation. So the word Sat Chit Ananda are not really qualities presented of the reality, but they are the nature of reality. That's why many times we have seen we write existence hyphen consciousness hyphen bliss. So in order to get this thought in us that they're not three separate things, that the reality is, but it is the same thing, just presented differently.
Can you say they are the pointers?
Can we say they are the pointers?
Yeah, to the,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, we can say that they're the pointers, yes. So it has to do with the limitations with our language. And anytime we use language, it is putting limitation somehow.
Right. Cannot be defined.
We are all aware of this very great saint from, from Maharashtra, Sant Gnaneshwar. And he was once sitting on a wall, okay? And he was a yogi. Okay? So he had a perfect power of yoga. He knew what what you can do with the subtle body and gross body. And so he had all those powers. One time there was an arrogant devotee, and he kind of challenged Sant Gnaneshwar. So in order to teach him a lesson, Sant Gnaneshwar, wherever he was sitting, he transferred his subtle body into that wall, and the wall started moving. The entire wall started moving, and this person was just completely shocked. So the idea was that even inert things can move if you have the yoga necessary to transfer the mind there. And if you do that, things will start moving. I'm not saying that, we are going into that direction, but it gives us the glimpse or the idea that even inert objects have presence of consciousness, have the existence, and have the bliss.
You can end.
Dhirenji, I was reading one research paper on consciousness in Indian and Western philosophy. In that, there's one Polish philosopher, I forgot his name. He defines the term consciousness in 5 dimensions. I forgot the first 2, but he talks about mythical, magical, and stuff like that. So now that you're talking about mind, where in Sant Gyaneshwar's, his devotee put his mind into that wall. So something like a magical thing or consciousness. He's defining that in those terms, that philosopher. I don't know. I was just trying to relate to that paper that I read and what you are telling now. So maybe it's basically the same thing what we talk about, right, Brahman? When you said every inert object also has the consciousness.
Yes.
It shines itself.
Dhirenji, this is Venkata speaking. So in the recent discourse given by Guruji on Kathopanishad, in that I think they go in depth, the text goes in depth, stating that we are not able to perceive or even define or explain the Atma or Mahan Atma, they call it there, with our senses. So the point here is the consciousness is already in us. It's not something that you would like to experience, you would like to see or measure or anything like that, like you mentioned earlier. It is our nature, but we are not able to realize it. So it is not something that you will see, even if you try, you will see, experience, define, and etc., etc. So I think the whole notion of this universe, what we see itself is a names and forms, actually, right?
It has all the 5 aspects: the name, form, and the shine and the dearness.
Correct, but we are only associating with names and forms.
Correct. The other 3 do not present to us. It just goes in the back.
Yeah.
And all we are focused then is on the name and the form.
Yeah.
So those are the intrinsic properties. We are just focusing on the extrinsic properties of names and forms. Right?
That's a good way, so much.
Yeah.
So it's very much present, sublime. It's present in the substratum.
Because what is present there is also present in us. So it's not something different.
Yeah, yeah.
Correct. So by becoming extrinsic, it shows itself as more real.
Right.
But that is not reality.
Yeah.
That cannot be the definition of reality, because upon further inspection, it is destructible. It can be changed, and therefore that cannot be the definition of reality. Reality has to last through all the things. It has to be same in all things, like how it was mentioned that abhinna satchidananda. It is same in all. So we are at 8 o'clock. We can conclude our class for today. And next week, we will see how this thought of meditation is now further elaborated. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Thank you, Dhirenji.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Have a
Thank you.
wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hari Om.